And thank you so much for being with us for the Classical Cafe. This is the Green Room. And in the Green Room with me is Maestro Daniel Hege from the Wichita Symphony Orchestra. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Caitlin. Great to be here.
It's wonderful to see you again after the holiday season. I'm excited for your very next Masterworks concert, which is next Saturday, January the 25th. And it features a really unique string trio, Time for Three.
That's right. Time for Three, they've been around for a while. They became friends at Curtis Institute of Music. And, it's an interesting trio. It's two violins and a double bassist. And they've been to the Wichita Symphony over the years a number of times. I mean, probably 5 or 6 times. The last time, though, was 2015. So it's almost 10 years since they've been here. And the audiences have loved them. Back when we did our Blue Jeans concerts and things like that, they did a lot of crossover music. And then they started getting a lot of works commissioned specifically for them, that trio. Jennifer Higdon is one of the major composers. And now for this piece, Kevin Putz, who was commissioned to write for them after he heard them play at Joe's Pub in New York City, because they perform as a trio, just the three of them alone, but they also perform with orchestras. So they have a wide variety of things they can do. They can do full recitals by themselves, but they also go out to play with orchestras. So uh, Kevin Putz heard them play, and then they were seeking him out as well as a composer that would write something for them. And so he wrote this. And it was basically around the pandemic time, around 2020, that it was supposed to be performed, but we all know what happened around that time in March 13th of 2020. So that delayed the premiere until 2022. But we're fortunate that this piece is around, because the first time I heard it, I was just bowled over, and I said, we have to play this piece, and this is the perfect vehicle to bring Time for Three back for.
And the composer Kevin Putz, I think listeners and audience members might have been introduced to his work because his one-act opera Silent Night has become immensely popular. It's obviously really accessible, and it's easy for smaller opera companies to stage it. So I think I've seen his opera Silent Night staged here in Kansas, oh,
Mhm.
maybe 4 or 5 times in the past few years. And that's this composer.
Yes, Kevin Putz's music is extremely accessible. Obviously, he's a modern composer. He was born in 1971, and his music is immediately relatable. For example, at the very beginning of this piece that he wrote for Time for Three, which is the name of the piece, is Contact. You hear the trio is singing. They're singing. They're not playing. And that's our first introduction. And there's something obviously so human about the voice, especially when we're used to hearing just instrumentalists play their instruments and not sing, but to see them holding their instruments and then singing, and then they start to play. The orchestra is even asked to sing later on in the piece. So it's fascinating how that color can merge in with the orchestral sounds, just on oohs and ahs and things like that.
And the overall arcing atmosphere for Contact. Um, he references in some of the materials, program notes and things talking about this piece. We think about the movie Contact. It's actually referenced, and he talks about how that played a little bit of an inspiration here. The idea of music being larger than universal.
Yeah, he actually, yeah, he does talk about that a little bit. He says that when he was first writing it, he was thinking it more in terms of just absolute music, or just kind of in the abstract sense, the way most composers write. But then as they were working on the piece together, he along with Time for Three, uh, they were really discovering there was something a little bit more there, and that it almost could have a link to outer space or to other intelligent life that could possibly be out there in outer space. For example, if someone were to discover this piece of music and hear the human voice, and hear that kind of message that the music has inside of it, uh, they might be very moved by that. And I think the music has that. It just has it inherently, and it's hard to describe. Um, the piece is in four movements. It's about 30 minutes long total. And the beginning movement is called The Call. That is movement number one. And interestingly, that's when they are vocalizing. And then the second movement is called uh, this is where they have codes. It's called codes, and it's almost like a Morse code kind of motoric rhythm. It's very driving and very galvanizing. The third movement is actually called contact, like the name of the piece, and that's kind of the emotional centerpiece, in my opinion. And then the fourth movement is this convivium, which is like a banquet or a feast, and it's with
Mm.
this uh, very interesting meter of 4 plus 3 plus 4 in 11/16 time. 11/16 time.
11/16.
Yeah,
Mm.
right. Right. So we have 16th notes as the basis of the pulse, but they are divided into four sixteenths, then 3/16, then 4/16. So that adds up to 11. And yeah, 11/16 time. And it's very, very quick, but it has this kind of Bulgarian folk idiom to it, with those rhythms and the melodies as well, sounding very
Mm.
Eastern. And it's just so catchy. And I think it just ends with such over the top enthusiasm. I think the audience is just going to love it. Plus, Time for Three, they are just some of the greatest performers on their instruments, and they work together so well. So to see the three of them interact while they communicate this wonderful work of music is just going to be something very, very special and exciting for everyone.
We're actually going to listen to the second movement, the codes,
Codes.
which is a
Codes, yeah.
scherzo. We're going to listen to and this we're listening to the album that was released by Time for Three. These are the actual performers that you can hear performing this piece. We're going to listen to this movement and then come back and talk about the other pieces on the concert. The next Masterworks concert featuring Time for Three is next Saturday, January the 25th. We'll be right back. That was the second movement from Contact by Kevin Putz, which will be performed. Actually, I forgot to turn it off. It just kept on going. You know what? If you want more, you have to go to the Wichita Symphony Orchestra concert
That's right.
next Saturday. I have Maestro Daniel Hege in the green room with me right now, talking all about Time for Three, where they're performing Kevin Putt's Contact. It also on this program, a couple of other incredible pieces. I'm really fascinated about Three Black Kings by Duke Ellington. And now, of
Hmm.
course, if you didn't know, you would just assume Duke Ellington, big band, jazz. He didn't really do much more than that. Oh my goodness, no. He went on and he composed some really important symphonic works.
Yeah. In fact, Duke Ellington, and we think of him as like a real king of jazz or an American jazz icon, but he really preferred to be known as just an American composer without the title of jazz to it at all. He basically rejected that word because he felt like his music was not easily put into a category and felt like it went much beyond the jazz, even though he uses obviously what we would call jazz idioms in a lot of his writing. And he mostly did write for big band, and a lot of his tunes were taken and then arranged by other people for big symphony orchestra. And this is, in this particular case, this is also Luther Henderson actually arranged this particular version with actually some help from our librarian Jacob Mashak, who actually
It's
did
also a
he did some adjusting in there because we had extra trombones that it was called for and everything, and so he was able to rewrite some of that. So he
mm,
taking a little bit of a hand in there. Now the piece we're playing is from Three Black Kings, and it was the last work that Duke Ellington ever wrote, and he actually didn't finish all of it. But one of the kings is Martin Luther King, and of course we always remember Martin Luther King in the month of January, and it will have happened already on the 20th, um, Martin Luther King Day. So we thought that this was very appropriate to take this Duke Ellington piece, a great American composer, and play this particular movement from Three Black Kings, which is Martin Luther King. The other two kings were biblical. They were Balthazar, the king of Magi, and Solomon.
mm,
But we're just playing the one movement, Martin Luther King. And this is actually a fairly slow moving gospel kind of feel to it, where we have saxophone on there. We use saxophone in Romeo and Juliet of Prokofiev on the second half. So we thought, let's use saxophone on this. And so we were able to put that into that piece, the Three Black Kings, the Martin Luther King movement.
And
But
we
it,
also get to highlight and call upon your great saxophonist who has played with the symphony for years.
Jim Pisano, he's
Yeah.
fantastic, fantastic. So, yeah, while the piece is kind of a slow gospel feel, which opens the concert, it gets to a really climactic moment, very emotional, where the whole orchestra is kind of crying out, and then it ends very quietly again. So, in some ways, it feels like it's a little bit of a subdued opening, especially at the very beginning, but it does have a high arc to it, and it's about 7 minutes long. So that's like our concert opener. And then we move to Time for Three with the piece Contact by Kevin Putz.
Romeo and Juliet has inspired music, theater, art. I mean, I couldn't even count on two hands probably the number of musical pieces, inspired by Romeo and Juliet, whether it's an opera, whether it's a standalone concert overture, or a ballet. And we get to enjoy the work of Sergei Prokofiev and a suite from his ballet.
That's right. So Prokofiev started to write in a much more melodic, relatable style. A little bit later in his career, he was known early on as writing extremely dissonant, harsh music. And he even left Russia in 1917, right when the Bolshevik rebellion happened. And then he ended up coming back, and he was championed by a lot of the Soviet authorities. And that's when he started to change his style so that he could reach as broad an audience as possible. And so he returned to this very, very melodic, very gorgeous, very emotional style. And of course, Romeo and Juliet is perfect, perfect subject matter for all that. And when he was writing it in 1935, he decided he wanted to have a happy ending at the end, and not have the tragedy that we all know is Romeo and Juliet. So he wrote the music so that Romeo would show up just a minute earlier before Juliet falls under her, who appears dead to him. And so it ends happily in his rendition. But then the
Yes.
Soviet authorities said, no, we're not going to do that. You're going to write a tragic ending, just like the story is. And Prokofiev's motivation for writing more lively music at the end was mostly for choreography, because he said, dead people can't dance, but living can. So he
Mhm.
wanted to have them, he finds her before she dies, and then they're celebrating and everyone's happy. But now we know that he did end it tragically. It is with the perceived death of Juliet by Romeo. And of course, we know what happens after that. There is in the music, though, a sense of such tragedy at the end that, and it's just music. So there is no text that's telling us exactly what's happening there. You can feel the tragedy almost right to the end. So you can incorporate both deaths. And then even at the very end, it ends somewhat like the sun is coming up. It isn't just end in complete, it ends quietly in a very still way, but with a feeling of optimism, which is what we know when the families came back together, and it's kind of this beautiful denouement at the end. So he did end up following the story quite closely, and the music. It's some of his best music ever. It's been 20 years since the Wichita
Yeah.
Symphony's performed any music of Romeo and Juliet by Prokofiev. So it's about high time that we come back and do that. Now, when Prokofiev wanted to first write this, the Bolshoi Ballet Theater was listening to it, his kind of read through that he was playing for them, and they said it's impossible to dance to, and they rejected it. So he thought, okay, I'm going to extract two suites from this ballet, and I'm going to get other orchestras to play them so that the public hears how great this music is, and then they're going to demand that it be staged as a ballet. And he was right. He banked on that. He
Yep.
banked on it by getting the music famous first by orchestras playing the suites without the ballet. And then the ballets were starting to compete for who gets to do the premiere, which is kind of funny because a truncated version of it appeared actually in what was then Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, and it wasn't until 1940 that it was actually premiered at the Kirov.
Wow.
So it took a while, but it's interesting that the suites preceded the actual performance of the ballet
Yeah, it is.
to get the music popularized to a broader range of people, and
Yeah.
then it was
Okay.
performed.
But it
Um,
worked.
the,
So the concert, Time for Three, next Saturday, January the 25th. It starts at 7:30 in Century 2 Concert Hall. For tickets, you can go to wichitasymphony.org or call the Wichita Symphony box office, and that phone number is 316-267-7658. There is a concert talk 1 hour before curtain. So at 6:30, you can hear Maestro Daniel Hege, and I'll be there hosting as well. Dive even deeper into the music. So if this sort of thing is really enlightening to you, and I do think it does add another layer to the concert when you can kind of attack the concert from just a little bit more knowledge about maybe the story behind the compositions.
yeah, absolutely. This is a time where we can delve in a little bit more deeply, and talk about the music, and you have that recency effect of just hearing about it and then
Yeah.
hearing the music. I do want to underline that we are celebrating our 80th season this year. So we're in the middle of it right now. And the actual first concert of the Wichita Symphony Orchestra happened January 21st, 1945. So when we talk about our 80th season, we're talking almost 80 years to the day
Oh, wow.
when we're going to perform this upcoming concert on January 25th. Just missing.
Daniel, you don't look a day over 45.
Oh, thank you so much. It's
It's
the stage
happy
background.
happy 80th anniversary to the Wichita Symphony Orchestra. So it's an excellent time to come and celebrate with the symphony and bring a friend.
Yes, bring a
Yeah,
friend.
bring a friend. All right, so next Saturday, the 25th, Time for Three joins the Wichita Symphony Orchestra. Um, Thank you so much, Daniel, for being here. As always, it's wonderful to have you on and a
Thank you,
guest in the
Caitlin.
green room. Um, I'm gonna press play right after this on just a short movement of the Romeo and Juliet suite, the Montagues and the Capulets, so people can enjoy that.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Have a great concert.
Thank you.